Hey there, it's Mindy, and today I have 4 boho DIY decor ideas for you. Today's video is also a collaboration with my friend Julia at the Mug Life DIY. I will link her channel in the description box, so be sure to go over and tell her I sent you. She does lots of upcycled decor, thrifted DIYs, Dollar Tree DIYs. I'm sure you'll love her channel if you enjoy mine. So go ahead and check her out. Let's get started. For my first project, I am taking this old pillow cover that was ripped and worn. To be honest, it was pretty cheap to begin with for a pillow cover, but I didn't want to get rid of it. I loved this print on it. I thought it was very boho and it goes great with my living room decor. So what I'm gonna do is take this 8x10 canvas from Dollar Tree and cut part of the pillow cover to cover it. So I'm starting by cutting the canvas off of the frame, and of course I'm going to keep the canvas so I can use it for another project. And I didn't bother removing any of the staples on the back because I'm just going to staple the fabric onto it. And then I went ahead and cut a piece to fit around the frame, and I'm going to use my staple gun to go ahead and staple that onto the wooden frame. And if you have a rotary blade, this makes it so much easier to cut apart. But what I wanted to mention about stapling fabric onto a canvas frame is you want to make sure you're lining it up and checking, flipping back and forth every so often just to make sure the fabric is straight and the pattern that you want to show is lining up correctly. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just placing it where I want it to end on the frame, and then I'll go ahead and flip it over, place one staple, then place a staple on the opposite side and repeat. You also want to make sure you're using a good amount of tension, pulling it so that the fabric is nice and taut on the frame, but also not pulling it so much that it's gonna wrinkle and buckle within the frame. Just a side note here, if you're ever curious about how I use any of the projects that I make in my videos, be sure you're following me on any of my social media. I am on Instagram and Facebook at simplymindy3, and you can also find that in the description box below. And at the corners, I'm just folding the fabric onto itself, kind of like when you wrap a present. You just want to fold it in and then over. And if there is any excess fabric, you want to cut that off before doing this so that it's not bulky. So I wanted to add a little bit more texture to this, and I had this yarn that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I love the color of this. So I'm going to add some fringe to the front of this. So I cut a piece of yarn, maybe about 6 inches long, and I'm going to use an embroidery needle to go ahead and feed it through to the back. And I just attached that by tying it and then gluing it onto the back afterwards to secure it. But once I had the 2 pieces through, I am going to cut a bunch of shorter pieces and create little sort of like tassels. But I'm doing a simple, it's pretty much a macrame knot when you start a macrame project, you start it like this. You just kind of double the length of yarn, feed it under that first string, and pull the two pieces through the loop to create this little fringe. And I just repeated the same step to add the rest of my fringe. I did do this process twice more to make 3 areas of fringe, and this is going on the shelves that I just made for my living room. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it for you. For my second project, I am using this amber candle holder, which I removed the excess wax from by melting it, and you'll see I kind of removed some of the coloring on the bottom, but that's going to be covered, so don't worry about that. And I couldn't get all of the stickiness from the label off, but that's also going to be covered by this macrame cord. So this one is pretty simple. I'm gonna cover the bottom first using some stiff felt, which I've already traced here, and I'll simply cut that out and glue it with some hot glue. And this project was actually inspired by another YouTuber who did this in a farmhouse style, so I will link her channel in the description box as well. But to cover up this candle holder, I'm using this cotton macrame cord, and this is simple. I'm just gluing the cord onto the glass using hot glue. And for the first few rows, I do use the glue all the way around, but then as you move up, you can just put the rope on and use the glue every few inches or so. And I went ahead and wrapped the cord until there was just about an inch or so left at the top. So now that the rope is where I want it to end, I'm gonna create 2 loops so it looks like handles on the jar, and all I'm doing is just skipping about 1.5 inches or so and continuing to glue the rope in that way. And then I'll just continue on, and when I get to the opposite side, I'll create a second handle. So I decided to also add some detail to this candle holder, and I used this suede cord that I'd used in a previous anthropology dupe, which I will link in the description box as well. But I created the little fringe in the same way that I did the first project, and I just used a longer piece to attach right around the top edge of the candle holder. And I love that I can just put a tea light in this and use it over and over, and the color is going to go perfectly again in my living room. My third project, and probably my favorite from this video, I am using these wine bottles, which I had previously used for a Christmas centerpiece, as you can see here, and I'd use removable vinyl, so I'm just going to take this lettering off and spray paint these black, and I'm using a satin spray paint by Rust-Oleum. So once I had the spray paint done and it was all dry, for the first bottle, I'm gonna just go ahead and glue the same macrame cord that I used in the previous project. And I'm not gonna bore you with watching this over and over. So I just glued about 3 or 4 inches up from the bottom. And I used that yarn from the first project to create 3 small tassels, which I tied together at varying lengths and attached to the top of the bottle, securing it with hot glue. If you want to know how to make a tassel, I do have a video with an in-depth tutorial, which I will link in the description box. For my second wine bottle, I'm going to share a quick macrame tutorial, and this is how you would do like a simple macrame plant hanger. So if you wanted to hang this, you could do it that way, but I'm not hanging mine. So I just knotted together 8 strands of yarn, and I'm just separating them into sets of 2. So the first step is to just take those 2 strands and tie them together in a simple knot. And I'm just doing about 1.5 inches away from the first knot. And I'll bring you in closer here in just a second. So once I have that first set of 2 strands knotted together, on the second set I'm going to take 1 strand from each of the 2 strand sets and knot those together. So as you can see here, I pulled that first strand out and left it to the side, and took 1 from each of the other sets, tied those together. I hope that makes sense. You can see clearly here what I'm doing. And once I get to the last strand, those 2 strands that are single will come together. And that's as simple as it gets. You can continue knotting like this all the way up to create a simple knotted planter, but I wanted to get a little bit fancy. So I decided to do a little spiral, and I believe this is called a half square knot. In macrame, you'll see this typically done with 4 strands of cord, but it can be done with 2. So here, you take 1 strand and bring it over the other, creating like a number 4 or backwards, and bring that strand under the loop and pull. And I'll show you here one more time. So if you continue doing this in the same direction, it creates this little spiral. Let me know in the comments if you remember doing this with GIMP when you were younger. If you're an 80s kid, you know what I'm talking about. So here is my finished macrame project, and the opening is just enough to get this wine bottle in there. And because this bottle has like a little divot in the bottom, that first knot will just sit right in there without me having to cut it. And for the top of this, I just created like a little necklace, I guess, around the bottleneck, and you'll see I left a little bit of fringe. And for that third bottle, I simply added some cord to the top and bottom. My fourth and final project is quick and easy, but it turned out so beautiful. I am using this light fixture cover that I found at the thrift store a few months back, and I just really love the shape of it and the frosted look, and I just knew I wanted to create something out of it. So I took this candle jar lid, which I spray painted black, and I simply glued this to the bottom of this light fixture cover using my favorite Power Tack glue. I did have to leave this overnight, even though I did use hot glue. You'll want to let this set really well. So that's that. I could have left it like that, but I wanted to add a little bit of detail, so I used my Cricut Joy and a geometric image that I found in Cricut Design Space, cut that from some vinyl, and added one to either side of my new vase. And I just think the vinyl adds a little extra to this. I did add some sand to the bottom of the vase, and I just plan on using some different greenery, maybe some dry grasses, to switch it out each season. But this will be going on my coffee table in my living room. If you have not seen my coffee table makeover, I'll also link that. But I just love this simple piece. I hope you enjoyed these boho thrifted and upcycled DIY decor pieces. Be sure to check out Julia's channel, linked in the description box, and tell her I sent you. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave me a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, thanks for watching.